In today's video lecture, we are going to discuss closures. Basically, closure is another concept of Python that is used to implement nested functions as well as to show that even when the scope of certain functions cease to exist, we can still use them. So whenever you are dealing with the concept of closures, keep three things in mind. First, we should have a nested function. Second, nested function must refer to a value defined in outer enclosing function. And third, enclosing function must return nested function. So if you look at this program, we have two functions here, function A and function B. And B is defined inside A, so first condition is fulfilled, we have a nested function. Then if you look at the statement inside B, it is returning x into n. X is value from B and n is value from A. So nested function is returning a value defined in outer function. So second condition is also fulfilled. And for the third condition, enclosing function must return nested function. Function definition A contains the statement return B. So outer function is actually returning nested function. All the three conditions are fulfilled. We have a closure in the program. Now, why do we need a closure? We need a closure when we want a function to retain its functionality even when its scope ceases to exist. So outer functions parameters are used within a dynamic function. Let's look at next statement, t3 equals to a3. In this statement, we are actually passing a call to A, and this call to A creates a binding for n. So n is bound to 3 in this statement. And for the next statement, t4 equals to a9, n is bound to 9. So each call to A is actually creating a new instance with different binding to n. So n is bound to, let's say it is bound to 3. If I take the example of I've taken this example where I'm printing the value t3 of 3. So what is exactly happening here? See, inside function definition A, we're not calling B. B is not called inside A. A is actually returning B. So when you call A3, when you're calling the function A using variable T3, A is returning B. So T3 is now referring to B. So our program has an external reference to the nested function now. Nested function is B and external reference is T3. So when I call A function with T3 variable, I'm using T3 equals to A3 statement. N is bound to 3 and A is returning B. So T3 is now referring to B. In the last statement, print T3 of 3. Since T3 was referring to B, it is calling B and X is now bound to 3. But value of X can be changed, because when I call T3 with value say 6, X will be 6. What I'm trying to illustrate here is, if I delete A, let's say I'm deleting A and then I call T3 again, you will still get the answer. Why? Because on the whole, a closure is a function that remembers its creation environment. That is, it remembers its enclosing scope. So even if we have deleted A, value of n is used inside B, and since n was bound to 3, it will make use of that previous value inside nested function. Even though outer function ceases to exist, I'm calling inner function nested function, and it will use that previous value that was bound to n. So this is the whole concept of closures. When I'm calling T4, n is bound to 9, and if I delete, let's say I delete A, n still will retain that value, and when I call T4 of some value, say 2, it will return the result because I'm calling function b indirectly, and this b function is returning x into n, so value of n will be taken from that previous binding. So this is how closure works. And yeah, T3 is behaving like a closure function now because outer function was called using T3, and so outer function will return inner function, and that variable is now referring to a nested function. It is actually creating an external reference for that nested function. These are the basics of closure, and usually in my videos I am talking about basics. We will do complex problems also, but once your basics are clear, you look at the program, you get to know the concepts that are being used in the program, and once you identify the concept and once you know how it works, it will be very easy for you to predict the output of that particular program. So this is it. This is about closures. Just remember the 3 points that I mentioned initially. You should have nested functions. Nested function is making use of value from outer function, and outer function is not returning a value or anything. It is returning nested function. Okay, and using that, because of that return statement, we will be having an external reference for the nested function, and due to this calling of outer function, and because of its returning nested function, and then we're having external reference for the nested function. Even if I delete the outer function, its scope ceases to exist, I can still make call to nested function and get the result. So I hope this is very clear to you. In the next video lecture, we'll learn about modules and files. Till then, take care.